new vehicle sales in Namibia have decreased by 0.7% month on month, which is almost 400 more vehicles sold when we compare this to the average September figures of the past 5 years. The lower monthly numbers compared to August was an account of 13.8% fall in commercial vehicle sales. For more, we are joined now by Namene Khalile, and he's the research manager at FNB Namibia. Namene, thank you so much for making the time to join us. Let's talk about the impact of South Africa's automotive industry strike on Namibia vehicle sales. What has the impact been?
Well, obviously that has meant that fewer cars have come to Namibia, but you must also keep in mind that vehicle sales are highly seasonal, and we're coming off a pretty strong period in terms of vehicle sales, because there are quite a number of auto shows that promote vehicle sales at discounted interest rates and things like that. So your demand for vehicles generally peaks around about mid-year, August, September, somewhere around there, and then after that it starts tapering off. So yeah, but it also just coincided with the strikes in South Africa, which just aggravated it a bit more.
Of course, if we segregate the numbers and we look at passenger vehicles, we see these are up by 18.7%, which seems like a relatively large number. What's driving this aggressive consumption?
Well, I've always said for a very long time is that consumers really don't have many avenues to spend their money besides, you know, your usual day-to-day consumption. You know, your housing supply is particularly weak in this country, and you find people buy cars a lot sooner than what they buy houses, and people buy up to their second, third car before they've even purchased their first house. So, you know, as long as they're not having access to housing, they will spend a lot of money on cars and automobiles.
Another interesting correlation coming out there, Namene, is the fact that a large part of the auto industry in Namibia is dominated by just two players, and this being Volkswagen and Toyota. Talk to us about whether there is scope for new players or smaller players in the industry, if at all.
Well, it will be very limited, you know, because Toyota and Volkswagen have come a very long way, you know, especially the rural masses where the majority of the people live. You know, the infrastructure to service other vehicles is extremely limited, you know, and also just issues surrounding reliability. You know, Toyota and Volkswagen have been testing in Namibia for quite some time, and a lot of the cars that come here are dry climate vehicles that come to Namibia. So they're actually specially adapted for our climatic conditions, and when you have a new entrant that comes in, they often battle with overheating and dust and issues like that you don't really have in the countries where the cars are originally designed. So that always makes it very difficult for any newcomer to penetrate this market.
Namene, one thing that also strikes me about the industry is just the heavy reliance on government tenders to drive business. Is there scope to diversify demand?
Well, there certainly is scope, but you must always keep in mind that government is always 30%. You know, when it comes to cars, well, government spends quite a bit of money on cars, and personally, I think they spend too much. Yeah, so there is a lot of scope to service others, but you know, the brand new car sales, that is just one aspect of it, because from my understanding is that that's only 1/3 of the vehicle imports. The other 2/3 are second-hand imports, and that's what the households are more after, you know, because in terms of affordability and reliability, you know, and also preference for older vehicles in the country.
Let's go a little bit deeper into second-hand models, Namene. To a large extent, are we also seeing that the brands that have proven themselves in terms of the ability to maintain the vehicles, are they also the same brands that are leading?
Absolutely, you know, and also the second-hand vehicles, there's a preference for substantially older cars. You know, you'd tend to think that you'd want people would be importing cars that are at least 5 years old, but they're more 2000 models that are coming through, 2000 to 2005 models, you know, and these are popular cars. They've proved themselves on Namibian roads, and they're pretty reliable, and people actually like them, and those are the cars that they prefer. So we're seeing a lot of imports of those type of cars, not necessarily luxury cars. There is one small aspect, but that's coming mostly through the ports, As the luxury cars coming from the UK, they're seriously lower, or their costing is much lower than what you'd find them locally. And but that's also got it's a bit of a spin-off from vehicle exports to the likes of Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Botswana, which are more landlocked, and these cars are more in transit.
Let's look at the commercial side of the conversation a little bit more. We saw vehicle sales coming slightly down on that side. Is this a reflection of broader trends in the economy?
Yeah, we did experience a bit of slow growth, so you'd expect that to hit the sector a bit more. But I'm actually surprised that it is as low as it is, because with all the capital projects that are taking place, you know, infrastructure development that's taking place, there's a lot of demand for commercial vehicles, and I would expect it to actually pick up, particularly leading up to the festive season. Namibia is a pretty big country, 827,000 square kilometers, you know, and distribution is a nightmare. You know, you've got 20, 30 towns scattered all over the place, and to get products to every corner of the country is a bit of a challenge. So generally this time of the year, when consumption expenditure picks up, you would expect the demand for commercial vehicles to transport all those consumer goods to the different towns to pick up, but that's not quite happening at this point, and it's probably we might have an oversupply of these vehicles for now, but going forward we expect it to pick up significantly, particularly within the mining space, and then also in agriculture and construction.
Of course, another development in the economy, we're seeing quite a number of activity in terms of the recent tax breaks, excuse me, and we've also seen a very favorable interest rate when we look at from a consumer perspective. In addition to you know, an appetite to get the first, second, and third vehicles, would you say that these market indicators are also behind the increased consumption?
Oh, most definitely. You know, when you have these short-term or these sudden increases in household income, you know, you do have sudden increases in expenditure. And the quickest one, and most probably the biggest one that people will make, is that on the cars. So that would kind of drive the demand for vehicles in the country. So that's more of a short-term thing, you know, but they are going to come under a bit of pressure, particularly on the side of the fuel expenditures. I mean, the fuel price is going up. There's some upward pressure. I think we had one increase last month. There'll probably another one this month again. But the prices are going up. We saw the price going up for diesel, which is pretty significant because we're heading into the rainy season, and that's the time when the farmers are plowing, and then also a large proportion of the population relies on subsistence farming, so they're also going to have to be doing some subsistence plowing during the holidays, and that's going to hurt their pockets a bit. So from December on, we'll probably see demand tapering off.
Before I let you go, very quickly, Namene, I mean, overall, motor dealerships in Namibia were off to a slow start at the beginning of the year. And given the fact that you've raised the flag on fuel prices, what are your expectations for the remaining quarter of the year?
Well, yeah, our view is more that your commercial vehicle sales are going to pick up, particularly in agriculture, construction, and in mining. On the consumer side, we'll see small increases. I mean, the interest rate environment does remain favorable for them, but then the fuel price is gonna bite them quite a bit. So. You know, it's going to increase a little bit, maybe by 5% year on year up until December. After that, we're probably going to start seeing some declines. And that will probably carry on till probably about March, April next year.